That was me pushing the button.
Yeah, buttons have been pushed. Oh, man. All right, and we're back. Welcome.
Man.
Welcome to Roll for Effort.
Welcome to
Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I was talking. I was interrupting you, man. Joe, nice 20 there. Start this one off.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Nat 20. So this is another segment that we're going to try out here that we're calling System Curious. And we want to talk about like our favorite RPGs that are out there, the best RPGs that are out there, the elements from them that you could probably use at your table, because that's the thing about dungeon mastering and running games these days, and especially like in the DIY community, the DIY underground. There's so much good content out there, and there's nothing wrong with just taking the thing you like and putting it in your game.
Very true.
Right?
And I rolled that nat 20 because tonight we're talking about EARTHDAWN.
That's right. EARTHDAWN. So Joe, this is like you threw this up, and almost immediately when I started asking everybody like what are your other favorite systems out there. So tell us about EARTHDAWN.
All right. Where would you like me to start? That's the question I pose to you.
Okay, so let's start it like the way I start my videos. When did it first come out?
Originally, it was 1993. I think at one point I'd previously said 91, but I was totally full of shit because it was 1993 when that first beautiful book came out, and I saw it on the bookshelf and at the store, and I went, "What is that? That's curious." And just the cover, the original cover of the cracked monolithic statue, kind of up with part of a hand buried up to the neck. I was like, "What is this?" I thumbed through it. I immediately took it home. It was
how many editions have there been now?
They are currently going into the 4th edition. So it was originally published by FASA, which, if you're familiar with BattleTech or Shadowrun, same company. And then it was sold to, I want to say it was maybe Pinnacle. Don't quote me on that, but I think Pinnacle might have gotten the 2nd edition. And then again, rights were sold to the 3rd edition, which, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to pull this one. But the 3rd edition was beautiful. It was amazing. Then FASA came back in and bought it again. They got the rights back, kept all the guys from 3rd edition and pulled them into it. They released a 3rd edition revised, and then FASA has just recently started pumping out the 4th edition, I want to say within the last couple of years.
Nice. What the hell is it about? What's the setting?
Yeah, well, and I have a question too. I think I have the $1 million question. What is it that makes this unique?
All right. Well, that actually kind of fits right in with the same question of what it's about. So, EARTHDAWN, according to all of the maps in the game, it takes place essentially on Earth. Whether they just use that as a backdrop for some precursor civilization to where we're at now. Shadowrun also happens to take place on our Earth. But the unique thing with EARTHDAWN is it is literally like playing in a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting. That's kind of its unique aspect, is that everybody is kind of almost reawakening to find what the world is like. And it's been 400 years since anybody has actually been outside to see what this world looks like. So it's literally like the dawn of Earth, which also happens to be the name of the first airship that was sent out of Thrall, which we have the gates of here in our background image. That ship was also called the EARTHDAWN, and it was that first re-exploratory thing to find out what's going on out here.
Wait, so everybody went like underground, and then the world ended, and then now this is like 400 years later?
Yeah, so there was life was running just normal 400 years prior. The Empire of Thera, which, you got to have a bad guy, so here come our bad guys. They were similar Romanesque style empire. Isle of Thera is literally, if you look at the maps, the Isle of Crete. Not that there's anything wrong with the Greeks or the Romans. It just happened to be where our bad guys were. So Thera, they were all about themselves and about money and wealth and power, and had basically kind of subjugated and enslaved most of the race, or most of the other denizens in Barsave, which to give you an idea of where is kind of modern day Turkey area. Not that it's Turkey, nothing negative there, just that's where it is game world in this fantasy setting.
Okay.
And they knew from these other books that a prophet had deciphered that there was a great scourge coming, that the veil between our modern reality with all of its magic and everything was merging with the astral plane, which was filled with these monumental and incomprehensible horrors. They knew this was coming, so they started building magical protections, different domes and different cares dug into the ground, and ways to ward themselves from these coming horrors. And then, boom, then it happened. But before it happened, Thera shut themselves off and left people that did not buy from them these magical protections to kind of fend for themselves. And that's where the dwarves, the dwarven kingdom of Thrall, stepped in and helped the rest of the races, or the rest of the peoples of Barsave that did not have these protections, to help them get these protections. But it also came with this, you could call it a constitution, a joining of forces against Thera, renouncing them and falling under the free claim of Thrall as the kingdom of Barsave, or ruling the kingdoms of Barsave as free peoples. So they helped build the rest of these magical fortifications, and then they sat in the darkness, deep down inside all their protective barriers. Some failed, some survived for 400 years until it was deemed close enough to be able to come back out. There's a whole little thing on how they knew the time it would be right, based on these magical kind of reverse engineered doomsday clocks of a sort. But it was eventually after 400 years that they came back out into the world and found everything changed. The ravishment of the horrors, this scourge, had changed literally everything.
Right. It's like it merged with like the far realm in D&D or whatever, like the astral plane and
exactly.
all the nightmares have come to pass.
It changed landscapes. It changed landmarks. Cities that used to stand proud were left to ruin, if there was anything left at all. All the old roadways were overgrown, and it was literally like a rediscovery. And people are cautious. Like, there's a lot of mistrust because the horrors, their taint had gone quite deep in some places. There's still some wandering the land. There's some that have actually corrupted people. So everybody's always worried about, maybe this guy is horror touched and he's just going to come in and completely destroy all of our way of life.
Yeah, and that was one of the first things that kind of sparked my interest when I started looking at this. This game has some of the most amazing monster art I've ever seen.
Yes,
like
beautiful,
genius artists working.
Are the monsters sort of unique, or what kind of genre do they fit into, or stylistic paradigm?
They are definitely unique. They did take their unique approach on a lot of monsters. You have some of your typical things, not in the essence of goblins so much, but you can find a similar thing to a zombie. They call it Cadaver Man, which it's kind of on that skeletal zombie path. There are some things like mundane creatures. Some bears were warped by this when the astral plane flooded through, all of that raw magical energy, which I'll actually have to talk about the magic too. That had kind of warped and mutated things, and there's what they call the Breathin, which is essentially a bear that has kind of gotten a worse temper, ram's horns, some quasi-magical nature. There are unicorns. Before the Scourge, they were the beautiful unicorn that you expect. The horse, the massive spire, the beauty. But the Scourge had twisted these things into like this horrific demon-looking beast that it will flat out kill you. It's a honey badger. It does not give...
You can say it.
Yeah, no, you can say it.
It will eat your face, and you won't even have a chance to say ouch.
Yeah.
So did this game come with any notable mechanics, or how did the game run? Was it complex? Was it crunchy?
It is on the crunchier side. If you're looking for a game that's got crunch, it's got it. It's not to the dice pool extent of Shadowrun. But this uses a step system, they call it. It does sadly fall into that realm of having an arbitrary number for your stats. but those stats are all broken down into a step number. And that step number denotes what dice or multiple dice that you use to make checks with that stat. These further get added to with your talents, which is kind of a skill-based set. And you're allowed to, put points into the ranks of these, and then it's that rank plus the associated attribute, which bumps that dice pool up even more. And this is a way that kind of really helps kind of go counterintuitively to some games where you could gain a level and still not really feel like much happened. Whereas in EARTHDAWN, you kind of have to increase these things, bump these ranks up to reach a minimum point to be able to go to your next level. So you kind of constantly have this feeling of growth with your character, no matter what the aspect it's going for. It does use 3 different target numbers, or armor class if you're more familiar with. You have for your physical, you have for a magical, and you also have for a social, because there are a lot of things that affect the social aspect and like the internal, like human you kind of feeling, which goes back to the touch of the horrors and the taint that they brought with them.
Do you think that FOSSA, being the originators of it, introduced or inadvertently had the DNA of like those battle games in the mechanics of this game?
Oh, that's a good question. I think they most certainly. I mean, they did come from that kind of set. I think I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure BattleTech was their first game, which was very much a tabletop game that went over into a role playing game. So I definitely think they brought some of that combat oriented feeling to the game. The combat in this, it can get very in depth, but still not take hours to actually complete a combat. Like it does still have a bit of flow with it.
See, I didn't realize that these were the same guys that developed BattleTech. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
This is solid games.
The reason I asked that question is because Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, you can tell like that game was spun off from the tabletop war game, because it's got like 3 different stats for strength or attacking, and it's like I can see the DNA here. So
that's another great game, by the way. I love that, the tabletop version and the role-playing game version.
Yeah, dude. The fourth edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is phenomenal. I mean, just a masterpiece.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, all right. So I play a lot of very rules light systems. Like you guys know, my favorite system is ICRPG, right? By Runehammer Games. And so is there something in EARTHDAWN that I could take out of EARTHDAWN and put into my game? Like, what is it that you would dissect out of EARTHDAWN to insert into your favorite RPG of choice? D&D, ICRPG, whatever that is.
I would definitely take the magic items, like the way that the magic items are approached, or the relics and such that they use in EARTHDAWN. So real quick to explain that, because it involves threads, the way magic is approached is that it's the nature of magical influence through the astral plane, which is where magic comes from, is worked with a series of like threads that you can only really see in the astral plane, and you kind of weave them together. Call it spell weaving instead of spell casting.
Okay.
And it involves tying these threads to yourself, making them part of your true pattern so that they function for you.
Oh man, I love the Wheel of Time. So you're giving all the keywords that just sort of make me feel good all over.
Oh, right. Well, safely casting,
the pattern and the spell threads and all that.
Right.
The weave.
Speaking of that, like casting is done through a spell matrix. That's what's the safe way. Think of it like a cat's cradle, and it's like a channel to keep everything safe. So now, with the idea of these magical threads and being tied to the true pattern of a person, the magical items, when you find them, it's a mundane thing. You can't access all of this magic until you tie a thread from your own personal true pattern into the pattern of this magic relic, this item, these legendary pieces. And once you've done that, it starts opening up like, oh, this spear now lets me do more damage. Okay, well, I'm going to dive deeper into it. And you have to use your experience points, called legend points in this game, because you're building your legend. You take those points and spend them into this weapon or shield or whatever type of equipment. And that lets you not only unlock additional ranks to tie threads to, but it also makes it more a part of you.
That is cool.
And the deeper you go, sometimes you'll get to a rank where you can't tie a thread to it until you've done this quest. Like, this item needs to go back to the place it was forged before you can unlock this knowledge that comes with it. You take it back to that place and find the key knowledge of, it was constructed with a element of a true kernel of elemental air. And then you can tap a thread, and now maybe you can throw that spear half a mile instead of a regular spear.
Oh my God. So that's like built to the power gamer's joy of like getting an item, and they're building the quest in for you as a DM, right? Like they're saying like, you need to go and venture to where this legendary relic was created to be able to upgrade it.
Exactly. And sometimes it's as simple as you just need to know a specific knowledge about it, which means you have to go and research the lore and the history, which means going to the library, which all again ties back into like the thought of your legendary status or becoming a legend.
Well, I have a question here. Like, how would this be on a regular basis fun for an entire table full of players? I mean, it sounds like this would be fun with like a one PC table.
Oh no, like it gets even like better multiple people at the table, because there are, oh gosh, let me see if I can actually remember. I probably should have flipped through a book before this. I want to say there's like 10 or 15 different, classes or disciplines, as they call them. Everything from archers and scouts to beastmasters, to airship sailors, because airships are a major everyday part of the game, to all these different schools of magic, whether it's illusionists or wizards or necromancers, which don't have the same negative connotations that most other games give them. Elementalists. I mean, it's a broad aspect, and all of these different approaches to the character, to the adept as they call them, people that are naturally attuned with a magical energy to be able to break into these disciplines, which rise them above regular people. They all end up flowing and melding in a really kind of beautiful way. Like it takes the lore of the game and through the characters makes the lore about them as they build their own legend and kind of feed right back into the lore, because it is really a big part of having things like the quest log for players, which literally is write out kind of like a little game synopsis of what your characters did, and it's actually worth legend points in the game if you take it and sell it back to the library, and that all feeds back to that point of discovery of this new world, this unknown place. So it has a lot of aspect of each of the characters being able to pull their part of the story and how their stories fit in with each other and the exploration of the world. So I mean, it gets, despite the crunchiness, it gets monumentally epic with multiple people.
Yeah, I really like this. I think this is one we might need to revisit at a future date, especially if they're going to be putting out a new edition soon or recently.
I could sadly talk for hours about it.
Yeah, and I've got some other questions that I don't think we really have time to cover today that sort of surfaced from my mind based on what David was asking and the way you were answering. So one thing I think would be great to talk about would be, okay, so you have this item and you need to upgrade it. And in order to upgrade it, you got to travel to Mount whatever or wherever you need to go. But what about the other players in the group? Like, do they just go along? Do they have a reason to also go there? I think there's and this is not just a question that I think is isolated to EARTHDAWN, because I felt the same way about the class rewards that exist in ICRPG, because there are these amazing class rewards that involve going to a specific place, but nobody ever does it because, like, what is everyone else going to do?
Well, one of the ways that can help that work is, again, relating back to the true pattern of a person or of each character.
Right.
forming a group, they can actually bind a pattern for their whole group, which tunes to all of the true patterns of the character, that innate woven magical structure of their bodies. So everybody can kind of end up benefiting from helping each other in these quests. Just to cover that real quick, like there's a lot of things I kind of like gave a shorter answer on. Like I could go on for days and days about this game.
That's really good though. I mean, that's the heart of the matter, because that solves that problem in a way. Then, like, it makes it a benefit for everybody at the table, especially if they have a magic system that's tied in, so that when one person is strengthened, all of the party members are strengthened in some minor way. That's really, really cool. That is certainly a unique RPG concept that I don't think I've seen in other games before.
Right, and it's also goes right into like the base reward structure of earning the legendary points, because this whole quest can be something that they take down in their quest log and take back to a library to sell, which again is worth legend points, so that all the characters benefit again that way.
Yeah.
Improved legendary status means more people know who you are, which means less people will chase you out of their town immediately.
Yeah,
which there's a lot of things that tie back to the lore. That make the characters a part of it. That's
so well thought out. I look forward to trying this one out, guys. And this. So this was a great talk. Everybody out there, if you have an RPG you think that we should check out, or that we should talk about, or that's really cool and unique, tell us about it and tell us why in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoy seeing this kind of video, please share it with other people and tell people about it. EARTHDAWN sounds like an amazing system and well worth checking out.
And chances are I've heard of the game you want to talk about too.
Yes.
Or I might play.
You like played the shit out of it for 10 years.
Yeah, Joe is like our archon of RPG knowledge.
I have played a lot of games. I just enjoy them. I'm always up to try a new system.
Yeah, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe, our Grand Archon.
Yep.
All right. Thanks again.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Peace.
There we go. I almost forgot how to end that. Let's roll the credits.
And I was trying to stay brief, but I noticed myself going on a tangent. I'm like, wait, no. You can gloss over some of that.
Oh, it's all good.
Full
We're going to talk about all this again.
What's that?